working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Cherrico and Brad Skelling.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. My name is Steve Cherrico. This is Brad Skelling.
Hey, Steve.
Teammate extraordinaire.
It's a new year.
Disc golf, not so much.
New year, new friends.
No way, dude. Old friends, old times. Good times, but new year. But new year. 100%.
It's a good time.
Yep. What you got going on, Brad?
Hey, it's the new year. We got a lot going on.
It's busy.
It's very busy. Trying to record a podcast in the midst of things coming at me, right? You just told me off camera that you're not that important. Put the phone away. I'm like, I got 30 seconds. Let's go.
I got to solve problems.
I got meetings to schedule on Friday morning.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Well, then you're that important. Good job.
Well, there's just a lot of good things happening. I mean, if you look at the board behind us, if you're watching on YouTube, you only notice San Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those other ones went away. Well, I can't say it that way. They didn't go away, but we're just taking a moment to breathe.
Yep. Deeper, not wider.
Deeper, not wider.
Yep. That's a good way to say it.
957 clubs. I haven't looked since last time we recorded, so that could be old. But
so what I hear you saying is 1,000 clubs by the end of this semester.
1,000 clubs by the end of this semester.
Come on, man.
Revitalizing some old areas.
Come on.
We've got some new staffers coming in. So, yeah, this podcast is landing mid-January, January 30, 31, and February 1st. We're having a training in Nashville.
Training. Yep.
This is the announcement. Here we go.
Is it?
You're going to be going.
I love that.
Staff training in Nashville. We're going to walk through the proven process.
Yep. Talk
about finding key influencers, raising money, hiring staff, networking the church, training club leadership, and launching clubs.
All the above.
All of the above.
Yep.
In 48 hours. Noon on Tuesday to noon on Thursday. We're going to go through it. It's going to be a great time. We got some great people. We got a new staffer coming from Georgia.
Nice.
Got a new staffer coming from Alabama.
Nice.
Got somebody coming from Illinois. Our new district hire in Springfield, Missouri. Got a couple Kentucky boys considering on coming down. So It should be a good time.
That's great.
Would love for you to join us. You don't, and I'll say this too.
You're saying to me, or were you looking at the camera when you said that?
I hope you're joining me because I need as much experience in the room as possible.
That's not why, but keep going.
But we say new staff training, but it's really new first priority leadership training.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
I'll say this: if you're a club leader, you get the whole gamut of materials.
Yep.
Your job isn't to raise money or network the church. Your job is, the third part is to run clubs, right? You talk about staff. We raise financial partners, raise money, network the church, launch clubs. We're going to hit all three of those things very deeply in that 48 hours. But whatever your role is, whatever your niche is, I think you'll benefit from hearing all of it. But yeah, come on in, join us. You're more than welcome. We'll feed you.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a vicious rumor, talking about announcements.
Okay.
I heard a vicious rumor that the first application for this year's scholarship came in.
It came in. Yeah.
And I read
January.
it.
You did?
Did you read it?
I did not.
It's good.
Yeah.
They're
all good.
It's good.
You get students who've been leading in their first priority club.
Yep.
It's going to be good.
I think you should forward every application to the guys and gals that are providing the scholarship.
We do.
And make them say no to whoever they're going to say no to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That way there'll be no no's.
Oh, you're saying the donor.
Yeah.
Oh, we send it back to, because this first application came from Birmingham, I believe.
Yeah. Correct.
I did notice that. So we send that back down to Debbie.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the donor.
So that she knows.
Let's go ahead and just put the donor on the spot. And say, hey, you tell that 18-year-old no.
Uh-huh. I do need to forward that to him.
That's good.
Uh-huh. I'm going to do that.
Good ideas.
Yes.
I'm done for the week. It's been a great
You're done for the year. That's more ideas you've given.
Thanks.
No, I'm just kidding.
Good ones anyway.
Good ones.
Helpful ones.
Exactly. Well, what do we got on the show today, Steve?
You know, I had a good conversation with Haley. To be really frank and just genuine with everybody in the podcast, it was supposed to go one direction. And we got into a conversation and we're just talking.
Okay.
Right? Just two guys that do campus ministry talking, and it went a completely different one. And we went with it because the conversation was excellent.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was good.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, without giving away any more, let's just jump in.
Here we go.
Well, as Brad said, everybody, this is Steve Cherrico. I am here with my friend and coworker,
and longtime First Priority pal, Haley Wherry. Haley, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
I'm going to ask Haley in just a moment to just tell a little bit of his story, but just for recollection's sake, Haley, Brad, and I all showed up at a retreat together in Alabama, kind of our first thing officially worth First Priority and Benny Prophet way back in the day. And Haley's been around First Priority for a long time. He and I are both forever young because we're both called to youth ministry, but we love seeing students reach students, so we like that version of it. So, Haley, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you are, where you are, and all that fun stuff.
All right, I am in Johnson City, Tennessee. Been here since 2000, the year 2000. Moved over Y2K, and I'm married to my wife Kelly. We celebrate 31 years here in a couple of weeks. Got a son named Brock. He is married to Raleigh, and they are living in Charlotte, Tennessee. They have our grandson Z. He's 4 months old this month.
Come on.
Youth pastor. Raleigh is an art teacher in high school. Then I have a daughter named Barrett, just a little bit younger than Brock. She is married to Richie. They live in Knoxville. She is an anti-money laundering analyst. She told me the correct title of what she is now, but I can't remember. It's too long. And then Richie is an engineer. So that's our family. Grew up, born in Nashville, grew up in Southwest Virginia, but been living between Roanoke, Virginia and Nashville all my life.
Wow. And so your daughter is a federal agent?
No, not a federal agent. She works, but she can if she wants to. She don't know anything about your finances, so watch out. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's why I was asking. Just curious.
Keep on
Just curious. Great. All right, so you're in Johnson City. You are part of the Northeast Tennessee One group out there. Tell us a little bit about your last 14, 15 years of the journey of First Priority. Like, walk us through that.
Well, I mean, I started off in ministry. I've been in youth ministry and college ministry for 30 something years now, and started off in a nonprofit organization in vocationally here called Ground Zero, and they asked me to be their campus ministry coordinator. So I started running campus ministry clubs, student-led clubs, called them Club 121, and about 4, 5, 6 years into there, I ran into a guy named Benny Prophet, and he was talking all about First Priority, and it dawned on me, wait a minute, we're using a thing called an axe revolution and a fish revolution. Sounds an awful lot like First Priority, and it actually was. So been doing First Priority a lot longer than I knew it. And shortly after that time frame, the organization I worked for moved out of the area, and I went to work for the national office for a year with the idea of getting something going here at a big scale all across the region. And it didn't take long to realize that when I talk about, literally was talking about 1 million teenagers in a giant region, most people are like, well, what about my student in the high school behind my house? And well, if we're going to start something big, we got to start something small. That rock in the pond kind of a concept we talk about all the time. So left the national office in 2000 and end of 2009, started First Priority here in Northeast Tennessee in 2010, and just recently made the shift to the national office type of model, and plugging along since then.
What you're referencing is you basically ran a chapter for a period of time, and then the national office made a change and decided they wanted to put a district with 12 counties in your area, which included the Johnson City, Washington County. Is that right? Is Washington County Johnson Cities? Yeah. So included that, and so it was an easy transition to get on a team instead of being a solo rider.
Yes. Now I've got 2 guys here with me. So I'm not by myself anymore, and it's one of the best things about it. I don't feel like I'm here on an island anymore. So
that's great. So let's talk about your nonprofit you were doing campus ministry with left, right? What, besides the fact that the ministry was very similar, what drew you to First Priority?
Well, I've always been I'm the type of pastor, youth pastor, that always wanted my kids to do something with their faith, and realized quite quickly in the youth ministry that I couldn't just give them a concept. Like, you can't just say to teenagers, "Hey, go win your friends for Christ." You got to, they have no clue what that means. You got to give them some type of concrete, step-by-step thing. And I saw campus ministry, Club 121, First Priority, the cycle, fish, or Axe Fish, Epic Hope, whatever, as okay, this is how you do that. This is no longer just a wish. It's okay, here's what I want you to do, and I'll help you through it, step 1 through 3. for. And I just thought it worked really well. I love seeing kids do ministry. I'm just listening to a pastor today talking about people saying I'm an evangelist, and most time when they say that, that means that they go preaching somewhere all the time. When in fact the position of evangelist is actually to empower the saints to do evangelism. And so I really have a heart for that, to be able to walk people through that, to encourage them with their faith, and to actually just sit back and watch God use people. It's just where my heart and passion are. So it fits
Yeah, I had
right
a
in.
friend. I love it. I had a friend remind me this past week at a lunch that there was only one evangelist named in the Bible,
Yeah.
Philip.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
okay.
Now, everybody else empowered the local church to make disciples that would go and reach and make disciples, right? So we empower. The Bible is full in the gospel of people empowering people of all ages, creeds, and backgrounds to go and share the good news of Jesus, which is, the bottom layer. It's the most pure part about first priority.
Mm. Everybody's a little evangelist, but only certain people are called to the title, the position of capital evangelist.
Yeah. Yeah, love that. Love that. So you've been in it a long time. I think you and I have even joked as old timers, right? We've been in this so long that there are youth pastors and there are people in the room with us that, we tell them how long we've been married and how long we've been in this, and they look and they go, well, I'm not even that old. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even have that many years. And you're like, oh, you're killing me, right? So why'd you stay? Why are you still in it?
As I tell people all the time, I don't think there's anything better for seeing a generation come to know Christ than the strategy of first priority. So that, and then I'm called here. This is a God calling. I can't change that even if I wanted to, until God calls me somewhere else or puts a different passion on my heart, which would be the same thing. I'm here for the long haul, and my feeling is I'm here till I retire, unless God does something drastic.
I love that. Let's dig into that a minute. Let's talk about calling for a minute since you brought it up. Sometimes that can feel very churchy in language, right? That's kind of a minister statement, right? But when you say you feel called, tell me what resonates inside of you. Why do you feel called to that area or to that generation or to the idea of students reaching students? What calls you?
Well, I've been having this discussion with some of the college students I work with about the difference. What is God's will for our lives? And one of the things we have to agree on is that there's a general God's will. It's the scripture. And it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, who you are. If you're living in God's general will, you're going to be successful and be a kingdom person, right? But then there's a specific will, which I believe is the calling. That typically a calling is either a burden for a specific type of person or a burden for a specific area. And then a calling has to be beyond, it's a three-way thing too. A calling is God, you, and then an organization, typically a church, has to agree that you're called. So um, why do I feel called to this? Well, my huge heavy burden is for teenagers. I accepted Christ when I was 10. I didn't bow my life totally to him as Lord until I was 25. And for 15 years, I was a Christian living in a world that needed a witness, and I just kind of was walking through it. And so my life goal, my life verse is John 10:10. I've come that you may have life, and you may have it abundantly. I didn't understand the abundant life till I totally submitted to Christ as my Lord. Um, and then you started making up for lost time. So my goal would be that no teenager ever looks back, or no adult ever looks back and go, what would it happen if I had been serious about that? So, and teenagers and students are kind of where my heart is, and then confirm that with the people around you that say, hey man, this is what you're called to do. This is what God's gifted you at. And so, and then I have a heart for this area. I am not called to foreign missions. I'm not called to Texas or California. I have a heart for my backyard. So I'm called to my location. I'm called to a people group, and I'm called to a passion. So that's
Good.
that's the way I
That's real
describe it.
good. Benny and I have had conversations about this before, and you have obviously picked up some of his language from the past. I can hear it in the way that you describe that, right? That doesn't matter where you are, it matters who you are when it comes to calling, right? The where is really up to God, and even if he there's this perfect will or the will, right? Just your and the idea that if I'm not in this perfect place, then God can't use me in that moment. Actually, contrary, God's wanting to know who you are and are you submitted wherever you are, right? Because your problems, it's the same with problems. You can go to another place, but if you don't deal with the root of the problem's going to show up in that next place, right? I can go to different places, but if my burden is for students and my burden is for students that have not experienced the gospel of Jesus, whether I'm in New York City, Nashville, Tennessee, or the back hills of West Virginia, I'm still going to be burdened by those lost students. That's not going to go away, right? That's
Right.
that calling thing you talked about. You brought up another interesting point where we talk about first priority and we talk about being really called to an area. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Johnson City, Washington County, how many middle and high schools are in that area? Do you know?
If you're talking about just the county I'm in, there's 12, but
Okay.
Northeast Tennessee ministry is 158 middle and high school campuses in our, in the district here. So, I've been working with 100 of those for almost 16 years now. And we've added the farther ones in the west side as part of the Northeast Tennessee one with the new district. Yeah, that's the number we're using, about 157. It changes every year from consolidations to new launches and stuff like that.
Sure. All right. So in your own backyard, the areas that you're currently responsible for, and I have some inside trader because I get to serve you on the regional side, right? Where are the areas that you're currently really focused on, and how many schools is that?
All right, I'm in Hawkins County, Sullivan County, Washington County, Carter County, Johnson County, Unicoi County. So I got 6 counties.
Are those all Tennessee?
Those are all Tennessee. Now,
Okay.
Bristol, Sullivan butts up against Bristol, so we have a couple of Bristol schools that cross over the Tennessee border into Bristol in Virginia. But I think there are 60 schools in those 6 counties, and we are currently in 28th of them, clubs going on.
Awesome. How many students? What's the student population at 60 schools?
Oh, those 60, well, if I have to extrapolate, 77,000 in the entire Tennessee area, Northeast Tennessee. So I'm guessing probably around about half of that, about 35,000 students.
Interesting. All right, so 35,000 students. You currently have 28 clubs going. I'm just getting somewhere, right? So how many of those students are you in the midst of? Like, how many students are currently serving inside first party clubs that you're serving?
As a student leader,
student leaders. Yeah, it's a good word. Yep.
Roughly 300.
Awesome. So we've got 300 kids on campus in an area that you serve that are looking to reach their campus with the gospel. So about 1 in every 10, right? It's really a 1 in 10 number in the school. No, it's a 1 in 100 number in the school, isn't it? So 16 student leaders of 1,600. So 1 for every 100 kids is a student leader in the club. Talk to me about what makes up a student leader. When you get in a group of kids and you begin to do the training, which is old hat to you and you've done over and over again, how do you know when you know that you've got one of those kids that's going to bring chaos in a good way to campus?
Well, one of the first indicators, this is just from youth ministry in general, but one of my main things, if I've got a teenager, no matter how old they are, if they'll carry on a conversation with me like a normal human being, and they're not intimidated by me, they're not bashful of me, they're not, well, you're old guy. To me, it's like, okay, there's something right there. That's a healthy mentality, a positive attitude. And so that's one of the first things I look for. Will they treat me like another human being? And typically, if they're willing to do that to a stranger, they're much more connected to their peers. And so I look for that. I look for that outgoing person. I don't need to stand on a soapbox and scream. It's just hey, I'll engage you in a conversation, right? And that's the first thing. The other is the ones that you can watch the other students in the room, how they act around them. One of my favorite things to do is ask a kid to pray, and they're like, I can't do that. I can't talk in public. I'm saying, I just sat and watched you for 30 minutes, be the class clown and entertain 40 kids in this room, and you can't stand in front of them and pray. That makes no sense, right? So look for that outgoing personality first, and then the next one would be the heart for the Lord. When that's combined. I have students right now that are outgoing and great leaders, And then I've got some kids that aren't necessarily great leaders, but their hearts are just burdened. When you get that combination, you get a leader who's burdened for the Lord, that's when ministry takes off. So my mindset is if you show up in the classroom, you're a leader. And so I want you doing something, whether you're just running the Instagram account or you put a poster up yesterday or you're speaking in front of everybody. I've
Good.
seen quite often that a student who's reluctant to do anything, if they'll do one thing, something minor, and they'll see God use it, then they're kind of open to, hey, wait a minute, maybe God could use me if I did this, and just to work them up from. I got lots of stories of kids who would never speak to anybody, uh, never said anything publicly to anybody. Now they're one of the best leaders on their campuses, just
Well, you
because they stepped
go
in and
ahead.
did something in the name of God, and God used it.
Well, and you threw me a softball because I was going to ask this. So we're a semester in. By the time this podcast comes out, we'll have started the second semester. Okay, so we're a semester into the 23-24 school year. Talk to me about one of those student leaders that you're like, man, this is a story that I can tell over and over again from this school year. You can name their first name or not. Your call.
Well, I've been telling a lot of stories, a lot about Megan. Megan is a young girl in my church. She was a sixth grader last year in a middle school here, brand new sixth grader, brand new on the campus. And in that fall semester, she started having a burden for the lost friends around her. She was exposed to a lot of kids she had never met before, right? So grew up in elementary school, gets to high school or a middle school, she's like, okay, lots of new folks and all that. And she started watching them around her and started having a burden for what they were going through and their lostness in their life. And she heard me give an update at my church, like our church supports the ministry, and I was giving an update on how the ministry was going, and she overheard that and turned to her mom and she said, "Do you think Mr. Haley would help me do something like that at my school?" And mom set up a meeting. I sat down with her and her mother and explained the ministry to them, explained how the leadership works, and she says, "I really want this at my school. I'll tell you what, over the next couple months, I will recruit friends. I'll find a faculty sponsor. I'll go to the administration, do what they need to ask me to do, and in January we get started. But I will never." And she looked at me and she said, "I repeat, I will never be able to speak or be anything in front of anybody."
Mm,
Those are one of my favorite kind of says, "Okay, you challenged me that. Okay, don't ever say that loud in front of God or anybody else."
yeah,
But I
exactly.
said, "Okay,
Yep.
sure. Let's just, yeah, okay." So she went, January, I forget what it was, January 7th or 8th at her school one afternoon. She had 14 people in the room, faculty sponsors. She had already gotten it approved by the school. We did the training and we moved right in. So she jumped right into one of those behind the scenes leadership type of roles and did very well at it. So we got 2, 3 months into the cycle, into the thing, and next to last cycle, she had not volunteered for anything up front of anybody. So I said, "Megan, you help get this started. Students all look at you as kind of a leader here. I want you to do something in front of me. Would you be willing to be the host at one meeting this cycle? Would you just stand up and pray? It's the invite week, so all you have to do is just make sure the club cards are, response cards are there. You can close us in prayer." And she just looked at me and kind of shook her head a little bit. And she goes, "Yeah, I can do that." So that club meeting went. She did a great job at it. We were sitting there planning the last cycle of the year, and I said, "Megan, um, you did a great job as host. You've not spoken as a speaker yet. Can you do that? Would you do invite week? In fact, here's the lesson plan. In fact, it's a drawing. You're an artist. You can draw the thing on the board and explain as you do. In fact, I'll give this to your mother. She can walk you through this." She had no excuses at that point. And she
Yep.
goes, "Okay, I'll do that." So that day came and she got up and shared the gospel, and two of her friends accepted Christ. Over
Mm,
that semester, 22 students made professions of faith in Christ,
mm.
all because she had a heart for her friends. So this is the end of the school year. Fall's coming back again. I get asked to bring another report to the church. And I said, "Can I bring someone with me?" And they said, "Yeah." So I went straight to Megan and standing next to her mom and dad. I said, "Megan, you did all right. You survived speaking in front of 14 friends or whatever it was." She goes, "Yes, I did." And I said,
Terrible, Haley.
"You think you could
Terrible.
stand in front of 500?" And she didn't open her mouth. She just stared at me and looked up at me. I said, "Yeah, I want you to be in front of me at the church next time I'm up in 2 weeks from now." And she just stared at me. And her mother said, "Yes, she can do this." And her dad goes, "You know what? I'm actually elder that's speaking, opening in prayer and all that, I'll be up on stage with you. And I said, here's what I'll do. I'll give you the 3 questions I'll ask you ahead of time, so you'll know how to answer. And she just never said yes, but her mother said yes for her. And she got up that day and did an excellent job. Didn't look nervous at all. She answered her questions. In fact, the church gave her an ovation when she shared about winning 2 friends to Christ. And afterwards, I said, "Hey, Megan, is that okay?" She goes, "No." But I said, "Would you do it again with me?" She said, "Yeah, I'll do that again." So Megan is an example of a student that doesn't think they have the ability to do anything.
Yeah.
But then all it takes is them to realize it's not their ability. It has anything to do with it. It's God, the Holy Spirit. And then for her, she still would say, "I won't do it," if you ask her right out. But I said, "I need you to do it." She would do it. Now she's a leader, regular speaker in her first priority. And she's now, her friends have no excuse that say I'm bashful. She goes, "Well, I am too, but get up there." So
Love it. One of the things that draws me to think about is, people I think at times wonder, how do you have the burden, right? How do you continue to work with students when things are so tough and there are so many lost? And the reality for me is, and I know this is you too, because we've talked about this before, we're trying to raise an army that will live hope for long after their high school days, right?
oh yeah.
I'm trying to raise people that, because we've given them a burden, I know you are too, inside a middle school or high school setting, that when they go to their next thing, they're like, part of my life is that I know how to share my faith. And part of my life is that I don't just know how to share my story, but I specifically know how to share my story and what Christ has done to transform my life, right? Not just really about me, it's about what God is doing inside of me. And whether a person's 25 or whether they're 35 or whether they're old like you and I and then they're in their 50s, right? They have the ability to say, let me tell you about being lost, and let me tell you about being found. And here's what God did. And we can either catch people when they're adults and they've already gone through all the uncomfort, or we can do exactly what you just described with Megan and says, come here, I'll be with you. All right, I'm going to put you in that next place. I'll be with you. Come on, I'll be with you. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll put it in such a way that you will feel success. You will feel opportunity. And the fact that you say that 22 kids came to Christ in that club, we say it all the time, Haley, that never gets old. It never
Now,
gets old.
we saw 90 salvations this past semester here in Northeast Tennessee, and that's awesome to me. But even more exciting to me are what you were just talking about, the kids that will do that in school, but then they'll graduate and they'll do that the rest of their lives.
That's right.
We're helping to create lifelong evangelists that will make more of an impact in their life than they will just at their school.
Right.
So that's, to me, it's a two-sided coin. It's evangelists and it's students won to Christ. And it's even cooler to see one that's won to Christ and then turns around to be that evangelist.
Yeah, that's fun. All right. So as we begin to land this plane, what are some things that you're looking forward to this semester? You've got another sprint of 4.5 months. What are you looking forward to?
Something happened, something clicked the last summer, and all of a sudden people are coming to us going, "Hey, I want this in my school," as opposed to us having to go drag people through. And so I've got a handful, probably 7 or 8 schools that I think might launch in the next couple of months here. And
Come on.
so going and launching schools, that's kind of, you talk about a calling or that. I love doing that. I love going and building something and then moving on to the next one. Not that I don't ever, I tell people all the time, I'm not an apostle, right? But first
Yeah.
priority leaders are like apostles. We go into a community, raise up a church, and cook that church and move on to the next community, do the same thing again.
Yep.
But don't forget about the churches, right? We're still
Yeah.
connected to them. So to me, I love building a network around a school, a brand new school, recruiting those new kids, starting something brand new. We just started last week at a school. High school had their first meeting, and they had
Nice.
4 new students show up at their first meeting, and that was, you would have thought they're like, "Hey, this works. This is great." So if it doesn't get snowed out, this is one of the counties gets snowed. If a snowflake comes down, it's like school's out. But if they meet tomorrow and they meet next week would be their first Vite week. So I'm praying for salvations to show them
Yeah.
this actually works. It's not just kids coming, it's kids' souls changing. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is these new communities and new launches and building new friends, building networks.
That's neat. Well, Haley, thanks for spending some time today, breaking open a little bit of your life and telling us about family and grandkids. Congrats on a 4-month-old grandson. That's super fun. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for just sharing the burden and Megan's story. That's awesome. And we look forward to your report on the next time you're on the podcast. Tell us all that's going on with those new schools.
I look forward to that too.
All right, man. Until next time. See you.
See ya.
Well, Steve, that was a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What did you appreciate about it the most?
Well, as I mentioned to you, the idea of the conversation was, let's talk a little bit, then we'll get into this certain thing. We never got there.
Sure.
Haley's telling his story. He's talking about just how his life really has caused him to do and be who he is.
Yep.
And next thing you know, we're in the thick of calling, right? And he is regurgitating what he's been working with a group of college and young adults on calling and giving different measures of calling. And what is the calling that God's will for you on a large scale, right? Global scale. What's God's will for you on a local scale? Man, I just thought he knocked it out of the park.
Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. I love it when our plans don't go as planned, but it gets better than that.
Well, Haley would tell you there was no plan. Haley and I had a conversation. I was just going to begin to give him softballs.
Sure.
And he just started regurgitating things, and I was like, forget the softballs.
Yep.
We're just going with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cool.
It was very
fun.
cool. Very cool. Well, and that's one of the things we have. I'll use that as a plug. I'm about announcements today.
All right, do it.
A
man with a purpose and a mission today.
It is one of our goals, not for this to be, this doesn't need to be about us. This is not the Steve and Brad show. This is a podcast, the First Priority podcast, right?
Yep.
So it's two of us. Yeah, we're sitting here.
Yeah.
We live in Nashville. We're close enough to be able to do this. Yeah. But the more people we can get on the show, the better the show will be, right?
Good.
And that's not us bantering. That's just the reality of, let's have every student leader in the country come and be on the show and hear their story, because their story matters, right? And so if you're sitting there listening, you've been a part of First Priority for a while, especially if you don't think you have a story to tell, reach out to us. We'd love to schedule you on here, get you on, hear what you're doing, where you're doing it, and what God's calling you to be doing in your school. We'd love that. So Brad at fpofamerica.com, shoot me an email. We'll get you scheduled.
You unfortunately have messed me up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This is the Brad and Steve show. It is my favorite show.
Are we writing a tune now? I can get a ukulele out.
Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Oh, good. That's good. You probably
There is a Brad and Steve show already?
No, but there's a Tom Green show. And it's
Tom Green
good.
show. I know that. Yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah.
And with that,
I'm going to bring a ukulele next week.
Well, I wish you would.
I've wanted to. I listened to the Phil Fisher podcast. He has a ukulele, but he's the VeggieTale guy and from back in the day, and he's just good at that kind of stuff.
It would be helpful to have more people show up next week.
I don't think so. Drive them all the way.
Until next week, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
It was a good one.
We'll see you soon.
Later.